The Dream Machine, Part 2. The survivors were brought into the tribunal in order based on a number of criteria. They were brought in order of rank, according to Newville official status, according to level of health, medical stability, and general coherence, and finally according to age. The assessor did not want to trouble anyone young, especially children, at least at first. Yet he was determined to record for the future all the data he could safely obtain regarding this tragedy. He was determined to do everything he could to be sure that nothing like this would ever happen again. While the technicians were arranging for food, water, and comforts to be given to the survivors, they casually interviewed them to determine the criteria for the order of interviews. One of the technicians paused from this activity as he remembered something. He excused himself from the processing room and went to a monitor, entered some data, and printed out the results. He took it to the assessor and showed him. The assessor read it. It was an ancient sort of prophecy, a kind of prediction that the Dream Machine rarely output in this modern day. Millennia ago, the original Dream Machine came out with a prediction that read, rather matter-of-factly, that there will come a time when fire and brimstone shall fall on the city of the wicked. The time of judgment and the end of worldliness will be at hand. The assessor looked at it, then looked back at the technician. The technician replied that he thought the prediction was apt. This was that time. The original Dream Machine had foreseen, with the limited amount of data it possessed, that at some point the ignorance, the deliberate selfishness of some culture will have to be faced. People will have to finally learn that selfishness, egocentrism, leads to destruction, and education, wisdom, and sacrifice for others leads to life. It's like a way of light and a way of darkness. Eventually, the original Dream Machine predicted that an eventual disaster will force people to forevermore turn away from the way of darkness and proceed together united into a unified future of sacrifice for the good of all, a new age of light. An age of true reason, not insanity, intoxication, and rampant abuse, as this past age of reason, supposedly, had given history to see. People outside of the Dream Machine thought that this prediction meant the end of the world in its entirety, but the original text still in its archive shows it meant only the end of worldliness, the end of selfishness, egocentrism, abuse of others for short-term gain, abuse of the earth for material profit, abuse of the messengers of light for a few years of darkness. This is the world that's ending, and today marks the first day. Perhaps your entries for this tribunal will be the first data marking the beginning of the end of hopelessness, disarray, chaos, and self-destruction, and the beginning of the way of light and life for all humanity. The assessor understood the context of the brief that had been handed him. This well-educated technician had grasped that this tribunal and the data input from it could prove to be a foundation for an eternal edifice on which all the hopes of humanity rested. He would take it slow, be deliberate, and reserve the right to recall any testimony for follow-up questions. Finally, no data from the tribunal would be input until all three members agreed in unanimity to the relevance of the data. He put these rules in place, briefed the two directors as to his memo of the prophecy, and they began. The following testimonies and interviews were unanimously approved for input into the archive by the serving tribunal. The guard. One of the survivors was a guard at the prison. His history had been researched on the Dream Machine archive, and it turned out that he'd been raised in a house with an active and well-maintained Dream Machine. Yet he had no Dream Machine in his house since he'd become an adult. He did not give access to a Dream Machine to his wife or children. He furthermore assisted in the persecution of Dream Machine technicians and faithful by keeping them in prison and indeed treating them as criminals. The assessor was anxious to hear his testimony. The guard was introduced to the recording technician. He stated his name, his family data, a brief history of his life in Newville, and his job title. He then began answering questions. Question. You were raised in a home in which a working Dream Machine was present, weren't you? Answer. Yes, I was. Question. Why was it that you did not procure one for your family, for yourself, when you became an adult and moved into your own place? Answer. I had been raised in the public school system and taught since childhood that the Dream Machine was myth, that there were many centers of the Dream Machine, all offering different opinions of the truth output by data. We could not be sure which Dream Machine was true, so all were turned off in school and removed. We were taught that Dream Machine technology was not necessary to live a good life. All we needed was to understand avenues of physical pleasure and to pursue these with all abandon. Question. Do you still believe that the Dream Machine is a myth, that it is not necessary to live a good life? Answer. After a pause. I believe that you believe your Dream Machine worked in this case, but for me, and I think all educated persons will give you this answer. The eruption of the volcano and the predictions of the coming eruption given by your staff that was housed in my prison seemed to me a lucky coincidence. Question. Yet, as a child, you witnessed useful data coming from your parents' Dream Machine. Answer. I understood as a child that something my parents believed was true was connected to the operation of that machine, but when I grew up I learned that truth is different from person to person. Question. What about mathematics? Is 2 plus 2 different from person to person? Answer. Yes, obviously. Some people do not know math, and to them 4 apples is just, well, a pile of fruit. Maybe it's not even that. Maybe it's just lunch and makes them hungry. Question. Do you understand that all of the affected communities that use and believe in the Dream Machine, only a few individuals were killed? Do you understand that only in your community where the Dream Machine was persecuted, only there were large portions of the population devastated? Answer. I understand and could have predicted before the eruption that this is the way you would see it. No matter the result, no matter which communities were wiped out, you would skew it to show the Dream Machine responsible for some kind of magical aid, some solution for everything. Question. Did you assist in the intoxication of school children with the dangerous vapors from the volcano? Answer. Did I assist? Did I take them up there myself? I don't understand. Question. I'm sorry, allow me to rephrase it. Do you think that there was anything wrong with sending school children while in class to be exposed to vapors emitted from the volcano? Answer. This is a part of human life. I know that in your culture, even though you follow the Dream Machine, you have individuals that expose themselves to intoxicants, such as intoxicants emitting from volcanoes. Question. So you believe that there was nothing wrong in deliberately exposing children, even requiring children to be exposed to these vapors as a class lesson? Answer. There's nothing wrong with taking children to the edge of a volcano and exposing them to vapors so they can enjoy the effects. No, sir. My children were taken there in school, and I supported it. I've never heard of anyone objecting to it, except radicals who were very intolerant and antisocial and were detained in prison justly for the good of the society. Question. Don't you see that the volcano was dangerous? Don't you see that the Dream Machine is a product of thousands of years of accumulated wisdom and accurately predicted this disaster and saved the communities who believed in it? Answer. I believe in a different Dream Machine that predicted I would have a very hectic day, and for me this Dream Machine was very true, as accurate as your own. I do not believe in your Dream Machine or the accuracy of its so-called wisdom. I honestly believe your Dream Machine is created to oppress people and to deny them the joy of their lives, however brief those lives may be. I will continue to teach this belief to all persons I come into contact with. If I am allowed to marry and have children, I will teach this to them as well. Question. Director seems visibly frustrated. Did you not understand the medical problems that started appearing throughout your society associated with proximity to the volcano? There were burns, respiratory distress cases, even physical injury from falling rock. Did you not associate these dangers with proximity to the volcano? Answer: It's possible to be injured while walking down a street. Should I petition my city to ban streets because there's a possible danger there? People were injured because of proximity with the volcano and others were not. People were injured away from the volcano and others were not. Question: So, to sum up, even though you were saved as a direct result of the Dream Machine data and the faithful who manned this station, you will not believe that Dream Machine is any more helpful or accurate than any other method of myth or superstition. Answer: That's correct. Very well phrased, I think. There are 1,000 ways to see into the future. The Dream Machine is one way, but it's also one way that's designed to take away personal freedom, especially personal enjoyment of life. Question: And you still do not see the volcano as anything dangerous or blame for this disaster? Answer: The volcano erupted and caused this disaster, but it does not mean that taking school children there to enjoy its vapors was wrong, or anyone else using it for pleasure. There is no way you can convince me that your Dream Machine saved anyone, except by sheer coincidence and luck. Question: And you are sure that there's nothing wrong with exposing children to volcanic gas, sulfur, burning embers, and rocks falling, so that they can become intoxicated even if these exposures could cause illness and injury? Answer: Intoxication is good, always good. You should try it before you condemn it. You're so quick to condemn things because they're fun and pleasurable. This was what I was taught about the Dream Machine, and you've said nothing to show me that your whole institution is not geared wholly to enslaving people and robbing them of their God-given rights to pleasure and fun. Question: One more question. What sort of prisoners were the Dream Machine staff? Answer: They were model prisoners. They were cooperative, even helping me in small ways. I once lost my keys. Any other prisoner would have grabbed them and hid them, maybe trying to escape. But your staff members showed them to me and readily gave them to me, even advising me to be more careful, or my job and personal safety might be in danger. The assessor thanked the guard for his testimony, telling him that he could be recalled in the coming days for further questions. The guard thanked the tribunal and turned to leave. One of the directors halted him and asked if he needed anything in particular, if his needs were being met. The guard turned and looked puzzled. He nodded and thanked the director and said that he was being well taken care of. The interview ended at this point. Dream Machine Technician / prisoner. The second interview was with one of the prisoners, who at first was thought to have been a Dream Machine technician. It turned out that this man had indeed been a Dream Machine technician, but had turned away from the Dream Machine and instead joined a competing Dream Machine organization, which had no working Dream Machine technology, but told the public otherwise. He was moved to the number 2 position because the assessor had thought priority should be given to these competing organizations that caused confusion into the public as to the truth offered by the Dream Machine. The archive had not shown any need of worry from these competing organizations, since in time their falsehoods would shine forth, as they had no way to accurately assess data or make predictions. All they had were hand-painted screens instead of data readouts. They had no method of inputting data or outputting results for given queries. The assessor was shocked to see someone educated in the Dream Machine switching sides, so to speak, and wanted to understand more of the collective insanity that ruled Newville in the weeks and months prior to the eruption. The interview started with an introduction of the individual being questioned. His name and brief history was input. He was asked to sit and asked if he wanted water or any refreshment. He declined. The questions started from the tribunal. Question: We understand that you were educated in the Dream Machine and certified as a technician, that you served faithfully for 4 years as a technician in the western sector, and then left and started work at, what was the name, the Reformed Dream Machine Institute. Answer: That's correct. I worked for the Dream Machine for 4 years, almost 5. I then began working at the Reformed Institute of the Dream Machine. The Reformed Dream Machine Institute is another offshoot of the Dream Machine technology. Question. You say offshoot. Can you elaborate on that? Was there some improvement in the dream machine that this institute offered? Answer. I believe there was. Again and again I was frustrated as a technician while working for your branch of the dream machine. I had to tell people what the data told me. I could not tell them what they wanted to hear. When they wanted to expose their children to the same gas at the volcano that had given them so much pleasure, I had to discourage them. I often lied to them and told them that these prohibitions against exposing them to the volcano and their children were simply rules passed down from another age, that they had no relevance in our modern age, that they did not need to heed them. But I tired of the hypocrisy. In short, I could not lie to them anymore. I knew the volcano was fun. I'd intoxicated myself there again and again. Even your own version of the Dream Machine has many instances of people deliberately going into volcanoes for, quote, study, quote. But I knew what they went there for. I knew they were there for their physical pleasure. I did it. If you lived in Newville when I did, you would have done it too. It was fun. I had to do it, and so did my neighbors and children. Of course, the children are frightened and scared at first. They have to be forced, but after a while they relax and they really enjoy it. Question. You forced children to go there? You forcibly exposed them? Answer. I did. There was often no other way to get them to enjoy the gas and sulfur. At first it burns and you feel your body wanting to flee, but you have to fight this. It goes away after a time. Question. So, you felt that it was hypocrisy that the Dream Machine instructed you to discourage this behavior? Answer. Yes, I did. I began to see the light. I began to see the truth of what they taught at the public schools. They taught that the Dream Machine is an institution based on oppression of the individual, enslavement, forcing the individual to work for the good of others. This arrangement allows the directors and the assessor, even you, sir, to live in opulence and luxury. Look around you. Are you not ashamed that your building still stands while so many others were destroyed? Question. After a brief pause by the director, in which he rested his face in his hands. So, tell us about your other, what was your word, offshoot of the Dream Machine? Answer. I joined the best, most modern unit of the Advanced Dream Machine Institute. There are others, also different in their beliefs. The Reformed Institute of the Dream Machine, or as we call it, the RIDM, was founded a generation ago, shortly after the gas started venting from the volcano. The Dream Machine centers in town kept publishing warnings about the volcano, making people panic. This divided families, causing many arguments as, say, a wife wanted to take her daughter to the volcano, but the father, turning again to the oppressive superstitions of your version of the Dream Machine, would forcibly restrain her and cause her daughter to fight her. The police had to intervene in that case, and I, as a member at the time of your Dream Machine, testified to the police that what the father believed was applicable to when it was entered into the Dream Machine archive many hundreds of years ago, but surely was untested and not applicable in the modern age. He believed in a superstition based on oppression. I told the police that I believed the Dream Machine was being misused by the Western Center in this case, and that the mother had the right to educate her daughter as she saw fit. The police forced the girl to go with the mother, even escorting them both to the volcano. Question. You were present at this? Answer. I was. I was happy for the mother and the daughter. Question. What happened to the father? Answer. When I joined the RIDM, I later convinced him, for the sake of peace in his home, to join our institute, and I helped him destroy his Dream Machine. Question. What was used instead of the archive in your offshoot of the Dream Machine? Answer. The ultimate archive, our common sense. Question. How did you become arrested and put into jail? Answer. Hesitating. I defended the director of the Western Center. I tried to prevent the police from beating him in public, and they arrested me and threw me in prison. Question. Tell us what you know about the arrest and beating of the director of the Western Center. Answer. Several weeks ago, I'm not sure of the date, he was speaking in public to an assembled group of persons, passing out information as to the coming disaster, informing them that they needed to get out. This was illegal for him to do this, but I was there anyway listening to him. I also told many of the people there that he was a crazy old man and they should just listen out of amusement. Question, why did you tell them this? Answer, well, as you may know by now, I like the volcano and saw it as fun. It's a pleasurable pastime and a way to enrich your life. It's like a gift given by God to us. It was free, after all, open 24 hours a day to everybody, regardless of race, creed, age. I thought the teachings of the Dream Machine, your Dream Machine, were based on ancient superstitions, some of which were useful, but many of which no longer applied in this modern age. I thought of him as something from a time machine, a relic of a distant age, like a museum piece come to life. Question, did you know of the evacuations being done by the neighboring communities? Answer, I saw no danger in evacuations. I did not understand the pressure the police and government put in trying to silence your Dream Machine staff. We live in a society valuing freedom, after all, and if someone wants to argue some ancient belief should be applied in the modern age, I'll take him on in a public debate and humiliate him, making people laugh. This is what I intended to do with your director, make a comedy out of it. People have been tense because of recent earthquakes, and I knew several families in my own RIDM that were talking about evacuation, just in case the old coot was right, you know. So I thought a public debate was the best way to discredit the old man. When the police arrived and started beating him, it was totally unnecessary. They hated him for some reason. I thought their overreaction gave power to his speech that he did not deserve. I tried to convince the police that he was harmless and that I could easily prove him a fool. I think I may have even pushed one of them. They beat me savagely, and they put me in prison with the crazy old man. I'm a gifted debater, after all. I'm sure it's in your archive. Question, it is. Do you still believe that our offshoot of the Dream Machine is based on oppression? Answer, I believe you have an excellent tool in your archive, a tool that can be useful in some limited ways, but that you use your tool to serve your own ends. You use this wisdom selectively to enrich yourselves and stay in opulent palaces, where you yourselves will not be affected by the consequences of your advice and recommendations. Question, did your RIDM recommend evacuation? Answer, no. We spoke out again and again about how this idea was ridiculous. Why flee against something beautiful, free, and fun for everyone? But several families did indeed evacuate against our recommendations. We did not stop them. We teach people to follow their conscience. Everybody has a right to do what they want. Question, do you believe that you're alive today because of the institution you turned away from, because of the true Dream Machine? Answer, whichever Dream Machine an individual believes in is their true Dream Machine. I believe I'm here because I was thrown into a very well-built jail and rescued by your military personnel. I do not know what your archive recommended about these specific acts. I was rescued by people, following their common sense, not by an archive. I can easily say, therefore, that I was rescued by the teachings and beliefs of my RIDM. My life here could easily serve to repudiate your ancient beliefs. The interview ended after this comment. The assessor asked the interviewee if he needed anything. He requested to be put into contact with the director of his RIDM whenever he is located. The assessor then told him that it was unlikely that anyone from his entire section of the city had survived, as reports were coming in that this entire region had been buried under almost a mile of superheated debris. The assessor informed him that they were making inquiries and searching for the evacuated families of the RIDM for further research into possible improvements of the Dream Machine system, insights they might provide. He would be notified if any of these families could be located. He nodded, and then added to the assessor that he felt all his immediate needs were adequately met. The assessor called a recess before the third interviewee would be brought in. The director seemed relieved. They asked that their conversations be considered private and not recorded. Recording stopped at this directive. The public school teacher. The third interviewee was a teacher from a public school. She'd been spotted at the top of a nearby peak where she'd apparently been picnicking at the time of the eruption. She was one of 11 survivors rescued from Newville prior to the second eruption. She'd been burned, but the burns were not severe and they'd been treated prior to her appearance. She had been washed and dressed in new clothes, but she reeked of sulfur throughout the interview. She stated that she was ready and willing to be interviewed and seemed hostile to all the Dream Machine staff she interacted with. She seemed to have been unaffected by and developed a tolerance for the smoke and ash she'd been exposed to. She wheezed as she spoke, but explained that this was her normal voice. She was introduced and a brief biography provided from the archive, which she amended and corrected as she saw fit. Her name was read to the tribunal. She asked for a glass of water, and it was brought to her. She was asked if she was comfortable, and upon her assent the questioning started. Question: We understand you're a public school teacher, and we are most anxious to learn how the accumulated wisdom of thousands of years could have been slowly erased from public school texts. Can you describe this process for us? Answer: As people advance in civilization, they rise above petty superstitions and see truth. For us, this truth came a generation ago when people of Newville learned that the volcano was a source of almost infinite and free pleasure, available to all whenever they wanted the trouble to get it. Ancient superstitions were brought to the public forum to try to get us to turn away from this God-given pleasure and discourage us from enjoying our lives. These ancient writings tried to enslave us to servitude so we could work in enriching centers such as yours, so you can sit in this opulent palace while our homes were destroyed by random acts of nature. I knew when the eruption occurred that your sect would try to spin this as some kind of divine justice, proving your ancient writings were valid, but it is just ridiculous to believe this. No educated person would believe you or your center could have magically prevented this eruption. Obviously, some disaster would occur at some point or another, killing people. I knew you would blame whatever happened on the volcano and our free pleasure that we could get without having to give money to you and your centers. Question: Thank you for your frank observations and opinions, but we were asking about the process that led to the banishment of Dream Machine technology and wisdom from the public schools. For over 200 years, you taught the Dream Machine in schools. Now, in the last generation, you suddenly do not. What led to this? Was there debate? Did it not bother you that every generation in every city in the whole peninsula for thousands of years have studied the Dream Machine, except for your city in the last 30 years or so? Answer: I believe that people advance. Civilization advances. As we learn new truth, old truths have to be changed and adjusted. This is all I've ever been aware that happens in public schools. We grow. We improve. This is all that's happened in the past 30 years. I never studied the Dream Machine, and I never met an educated person in Newville that had studied seriously about it. I know of no serious debate among educated persons about improving education versus regressing back into superstition. Question: Do you believe the Dream Machine is based on superstition then? Answer: I do. Question: But you said you never studied it, true? Answer: I did not. I do not know of any intelligent person who studied it. Question: So you admit that you're ignorant as to the workings, the history, and the use of the Dream Machine? Answer: I know it to be a false god that people believe will solve all problems. I know it serves a certain high class of elite that enrich themselves by lying to people, telling them that if they believe in it, they will never have difficulties in their lives. Question: Where did you hear these beliefs? Answer: This is common knowledge. Everybody who's educated knows this about the Dream Machine. Question: But you said nobody who's educated has studied it seriously, right? Answer: Of course, nobody who's intelligent will turn to some crazy machine to solve their problems. I know of nobody who I regard as intelligent that has or ever would study the Dream Machine. The director was prevented from asking a question by the assessor at this point. There was even a pause before the next question. Question: How do you believe you were rescued? Answer: I was rescued by your military units who spotted me on that hill. Question: Were you with anyone before the eruption? Was there anyone else with you who was not rescued? Answer: My husband and 2 of my children died from the eruption and heated gas that overtook us at our picnic. I was the only survivor in my quadrant of the city, as far as I know. Question: To what do you attribute your survival? Answer: I belong to a religion that worships regularly at that mountain. I used to take my school children as a class on field trips there to introduce them to this religion. My familiarity with the gas and smoke, heat and ash is what saved me. I was saved because I worshipped the volcano. Literally. My husband believed the volcano was bad. He refused to allow me to take our children there because he never went there for the gas. He died. Because I did, I survived. If he had allowed me to take our children there as often as I wished, they would have survived too. There was a brief recess as the interviewee had a fit of coughing that resulted in violent vomiting. She was offered help, but she explained that this frequently happened to her. This is normal for her. She explained that many in Newville suffered from this ailment. It was a mystery to their medical science. She wished to continue if she was still needed. The interview resumed. Question. Did children that you took to the volcano suffer from this ailment, coughing with vomit? Answer. This is an ailment that some in the medical community associate with the volcano, but this is not widely accepted as it's discriminatory. Question. Do others in your religion suffer this ailment? Answer. Most of the people I know that go regularly to the volcano for religious beliefs or recreation do indeed suffer from this ailment, but in Newville it's punishable by law to link the ailment with the volcano, especially publicly. Question. If people go to the volcano against the recommendations by the Dream Machine because it's dangerous for their health and they get sick, why would it be illegal to say this in public? Answer. Well, there are many different Dream Machine centers, and some of them recommend going to the volcano, while others, like yours, living in ancient times and using ancient beliefs to oppress the modern lives of people today, believe it is bad to go to the volcano and enjoy your life. To answer your question, it is illegal to say it's an ailment from the volcano because the volcano is the right of all people of Newville. It was given to Newville by God for their use and enjoyment. Anyone trying to prevent the citizens of Newville from enjoying their lives, from having fun and pursuing pleasure, is arrested, whether this fun is going to the volcano or just laughing and singing as you walk down the street. Whatever you do, if you enjoy it, the police will defend your right to do it. Question. If the Dream Machine technicians and directors, and when I say this I mean our Dream Machine, had been allowed to speak freely and educate your population about the possible dangers of the volcano, they might have been able to evacuate your city. Everyone you know would still be alive and with you. Furthermore, if you believed in the Dream Machine, your lungs would not be damaged, and you would be healthy and strong. Do you believe these statements are true? Answer. I do not believe your magical machine could have done anything to prevent the earth from doing what it was going to do, erupt or earthquake or flood or whatever. I do not believe that you really believe that some machine can prevent anything like that from happening. Question. All the Dream Machine is a collection of wisdom from the ancients to today in a continuous line. It just processes knowledge and prints it out to us in a focused way, say, all knowledge dealing with eruptions. If we'd been able to share this with your public, we could have shown that an eruption was imminent, and we could have saved people. In the same way, we could have educated you that your activities were harming your body and destroying your health. We could have saved your city. Do you understand this? Answer. I believe that you believe that what you say is true. But if what you say is true, why are there so many different Dream Machine centers all saying different things? How can anyone know which one is the correct one? Question. All you have to do to find the correct Dream Machine center is find the one with thousands of years of accumulated wisdom. Just look at the membership, the faithful who have their lives transformed. In this case, you can look at the vast majority of the population of the outlying areas around Newville that were all saved almost completely. You can look at this building, which was built from wisdom from the Dream Machine, and understand that all the other competing centers are gone, wiped out. Does this make sense to you? Answer. Obviously, it's easy to say that this building, because it's here, was saved by something, but that's just superstition. The eruption could have easily happened here, and you would be interviewed by your competing center, who was telling you that they were correct, and you were in error persecuting them. Question. We have never persecuted the truth. We are even interviewing a technician from a competing center to find out if there's anything useful his center can give to our archive. Getting back to your job as a teacher, were there children who did not want to be exposed to the sulfur and heat of the volcano? Answer. Children are afraid of a lot of things. The dark, sounds in the night. I know a child that was afraid of clowns. Can you imagine? Part of growing up is conquering your fear. It's my job as a teacher to help these children become good, healthy adults. Learning the usefulness, the joy in the volcano, especially in closeness to the volcano, is part of my job. I believe right now that if they had not fought and struggled so much, maybe they would be alive here today as I am. Question, after another pause from coughing and vomiting. Do you consider yourself a good, healthy adult? Answer, I am. I'm alive. I'm much more healthy than my husband is right now, and he hated the volcano and did exactly what your dream machine recommended him to do. Question, he evacuated. Answer, no, he avoided the volcano and had fear of it. I tried to help him to conquer his fear, but partly because of you and your superstitions, he died. He was too weak and afraid to survive, thanks to you and your wisdom. Question, so today, after witnessing the eruption and knowing the dream machine, our dream machine centers warned of an eruption. After witnessing the deaths of so many and the destruction of your city, when we advised and pleaded with your population to flee while there was time, you still believe it was the right thing to ban the dream machine wisdom and technology from your schools? Answer, yes, your people did warn about the volcano, and 100 others dressed just like you in buildings just like yours with claims just as impassioned pleaded and advised other actions. Some Dream Machine centers pleaded and advised more people to go to the rim of the volcano as the earthquakes began, saying that if they did not all go, if they did not all faithfully believe in the good of the volcano, inhale the goodness, and feel the pure joy of life offered by the heat of the fires, did you not know that life is hot? Your body, breath, and blood is hot, just like a volcano. It really is alive, therefore, and can be bargained with, appeased, communicated with. Do you believe this? I do. This is our public school curriculum. I think this belief makes just as much sense as your beliefs. But this center said that if we all went there collectively as a city, hand in hand, they stressed we had to go hand in hand. I knew it was just to make sure the children did not run, based on my experience. But if we failed to do this faithfully as they instructed, the god of the volcano would be angry and we would be destroyed. If we'd all done this together as they wished, I believe that it's just as possible that we would have been saved. At least as possible as your predictions, that if we fled everything, we would be perfect and the world would be filled with butterflies and flowers. Just as likely, just as scientifically accurate. Question, do you believe our center directors were telling people about flowers and butterflies? Answer, isn't that what you people preach? That if we enrich you and your centers, if we do what you say and work for you, do all of your whims, that everything in the earth will be beautiful forever, and trouble, all worry and frowns will disappear forever? Isn't that your guarantee? Isn't that your scam? Question, but you never studied the Dream Machine, by your own admission, and nobody you ever knew studied it, correct? Answer, do we have to go over that again? No, of course not. Would you seriously study a rock that someone said would solve all your problems if you gave them enough money? She had followed this statement with another fit of coughing and vomiting, and one of the directors felt ill. The assessor declared that nothing more of real use could be learned from this interviewee at this time. She was advised that she might be recalled for further testimony and released. She collapsed as she attempted the exit. As she was carried away by medical personnel, she reassured them that this was normal for her, and that the ailment was a mystery to Newville medical science. After a brief recess, the tribunal assembled to make a statement for the input for the archive. The following is a tentative draft of that statement that may be revised pending further testimony. The statement. The date and time of the statement is input. The names of the tribunal are listed. The statement is issued from the assessor of the center as a result of the failed evacuation before the great eruption at Newville, resulting from the persecution of the Dream Machine and Dream Machine technicians and other faithful in Newville. The tribunal is unanimous in approving this statement to be input into the archive for future assessment. We, the tribunal, have witnessed the great disaster of this modern age. An entire modern city, culture, and nascent civilization, only 300 years in the making, were wiped from the earth in a terrible roar of fire, sulfur, and brimstone. Their city and its population were reduced almost instantly to ash by the heat of this terrific fire, yet all the surrounding communities were saved because of faith in the Dream Machine. They were located according to Dream Machine recommendations and maintained according to the ancient wisdom. All cities and communities that dutifully obeyed the authority of the assessor and their regional directors survived. These cultures and civilizations will survive because of their faith. Newville did not have faith, but hatred towards ancient wisdom, hatred towards discipline and sacrifice, hatred towards the entire institution of the Dream Machine. They sought to dilute the truth of the Dream Machine with a dozen competing Dream Machine institutions, all telling them that they could do what they wanted, when they wanted, without consequence. Because of their democratic political institutions, the leaders who appealed to the baser desires of the populace earned the most donations for their campaigns. Gradually, over a period of a generation, their once proud institutions, their proud political system, were reduced to a society of abject hedonism and persecution and torture of those who could have saved them and guided them to safety. They led their children into the fire and sulfur, teaching them that this fire of eternal death was the path to life, and that the path to eternal life was a life of meaningless servitude. So intent were they in these beliefs that the few survivors that were recovered testified to this belief, that the volcano was a source of good to them, a god of salvation, as one put it, and the Dream Machine a source of oppression. Each survivor so far encountered testified continually to this belief. They forced children who knew well the danger of the volcano into it, into the fire and sulfur, until they would resist no more. As drug addicts hate the clean, as prostitutes mock the faithful, these people collectively sought to pollute each citizen's lungs with the foul breath of death from the volcano. Anyone uttering protest was arrested. Anyone fighting for the life of the city was imprisoned. At first, the Dream Machine was banned from public schools. Then it was banned from media and airwaves. Finally, Dream Machine personnel were arrested, beaten, and jailed for speaking truth to the public. The city was intent on its march into the jaws of death, and no one was allowed to turn the tide. The force of political and legal machinery was used to ensure the death of this culture. We will never have an exact count of the dead. We write this entry to briefly sum up the events that led to this catastrophe in the hopes that future disasters can be prevented before it is too late. We, the tribunal, from the information we have so far, have determined that the following 3 steps be attributed as the major events that led to this tragedy. These 3 steps fell like dominoes, one after the other. If the first step is prevented, the other 2 would not have occurred. This is the belief of the tribunal at this time. The recommendation of the tribunal to the faithful at this time is to attempt to prevent and discourage the first step. Remember the citizens of Newville, and remind political leaders of the consequence of censoring truth and debate out of school. 1. The banning of accurate Dream Machine history and information from public schools. 2. The banning from schools led to an increased ignorance about the Dream Machine, which caused the proliferation of alternate Dream Machine institutions that taught false information which confused many of the faithful and misguided the uninformed as to the authority and nature of the ancient and universal dream machine. 3. Democratic institutions can be ruled by the wily and corrupt who gain power by appealing to base desires of uneducated masses. Naturally, the dream machine will attempt to expose the corruption and educate people about choices and options differing from those given to them by corrupt and misguided political leaders. But if the authority of the dream machine is diminished, the possible curbing of corruption may be removed. Once a culture has decided that an institution that exists to spread and teach thousands of years of wisdom is to be suppressed, the reason for this suppression has to be exposed and publicly debated. This process cannot start generations after the initial ban or suppression or persecution. If a culture censors its education and limits its perspective of truth as something only current, removing from public knowledge the contributions of untold numbers of generations, it will be doomed. Furthermore, a culture basing its ethos on serving individual physical pleasure at all costs, no matter the effect on public health or consequence to future generations, will not last. It is not our duty or obligation to outline exactly why or how, only to point out the numerous examples throughout history, including this recent one, that proves the point. Science shows us the constant replication of a result proves a hypothesis to be fact. Pleasure over discipline and or selfishness over sacrifice dooms a culture. This is a fact. It is the duty and obligation of all Dream Machine faithful to insist their cultural ethos be based on sacrifice of selfish desires for the good of the public. This is based on all the wisdom in the archive. If a culture starts to celebrate individual pleasure that derives from the abuse of another, crime will spread, people will lose connection with their brethren. Abortion and infanticide will spread like wildfire, abuse and neglect of elders will spread. Tribalism will reemerge from the pagan past, and the culture and civilization will be reduced. This place that was Newville will be a memory because of neglect of the truth over individual passion. Only the truth will survive. If everyone in a city believes in a lie, it is still a lie. If nobody in the city believes in the truth, it is still the truth. Democracy cannot debate or outlaw truth. Sacrifice will win over selfishness. The slave will become the master. The meek and humble will always inherit Newville.